Imagine this, Malik Johnson says in a calm voice. You're 42 years old. Your husband is your gynecologist. One day, another doctor looks at your ultrasound and says, "There is something inside you that should never have been there." Then he adds, "Ma'am, this might be a crime. If you are over 45 or if you've ever pushed down that little voice that said something is wrong, stay with me. This story is really for you." And before we go on, tap. Like so, this story can reach someone who needs the warning. The picture shifts, and now we are in Atlanta, Georgia, on a gray afternoon in 2022. Renee Ray Parker sat on the edge of the exam table, paper crinkling under her. The room at Eastside Women's Wellness Center in Decatur was bright and clean, the kind of place where people usually felt safe. But Ray did not feel safe at all. Her hands would not stop shaking. For 6 months, something inside her body had been screaming. It started as light cramps that came and went. Then the pain grew sharper, like a fist squeezing the lower part of her belly and not letting go. Some days she could not stand up straight. Her periods changed too. They no longer followed the pattern she knew. The bleeding came early, then late, then heavy, then not at all. Ray tried to explain it all to her husband, Dr. Quentin Parker. He was not just any husband. He was a well-known OB/GYN in Atlanta, a man who delivered babies and wore a white coat with his name on the pocket. Nurses greeted him like a hero when he walked into Buckhead Women's Health Center, the clinic he managed. So when Ray first told him about the cramps, he just smiled that calm, practiced smile. "Baby, you're 42, he said, patting her hand. "Your body is changing. It's perimenopause. Totally normal. I see this every day." He wrote a prescription for pain pills and hormones, kissed her forehead, and told her not to worry. For a while, Ray tried to believe him. It was easier to believe him than to believe the fear in her own chest. She told herself she was tired, stressed, getting older, but the pain did not listen to his words. Month after month, it got worse. It came in waves that folded her in half over the kitchen sink. It woke her up at night, sharp and deep. Each time she went back to Quentin, he said almost the same thing. "Ray, we have talked about this. This is what 40 looks like for a lot of women. Trust me, if there was something serious, I would know. I know your body better than any outside doctor ever could." Those last words always made her stop. Once, they had sounded loving. Now they felt like a lock on a door she could not open. Ray would nod and leave his office with another bottle of pills in her purse. She did not want to hurt his pride. She did not want to seem ungrateful. But some small, stubborn part of her whispered the same words every night when she lay awake in the dark. Something is wrong. When Quentin's mother's heart got worse in late 2022, he booked a flight to Savannah to stay with her. He kissed Ray at the door of their house in southwest Atlanta, told her to rest, and promised to call. The moment the door closed behind him, the house felt different, quieter, less watched. Ray stood in the hallway, hand on her lower belly, and listened to her own thoughts without his voice talking over them. Before she could talk herself out of it, she picked up her phone and searched for a new doctor, someone who did not know her as Quentin's wife. Someone who would look at her like a patient, not a problem to manage. That was how she found Dr. Isaiah Cole. His name popped up with good reviews. 2 days later, Ray sat in his exam room, wearing a thin blue gown and a paper sheet across her lap. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. A poster on the wall showed a woman walking on a beach. At the bottom were the words, "Listen to your body. It is telling you a story." Isaiah came in with a tablet in his hand. He greeted her, asked simple questions, and listened while she talked. He did not interrupt to explain her feelings away. When she told him her husband was an OB/GYN, he raised his eyebrows but did not make a joke. "So, your husband has been your main doctor for 5 years?" he asked. Ray nodded. "Ever since he opened his own clinic in Buckhead. He handles all my checkups, all my prescriptions, everything." Isaiah tapped a few notes into the tablet, and in all that time, he said carefully, "No one has ever ordered an ultrasound for this pain?" "No," Ray answered. "He said it wasn't necessary." Isaiah was quiet for a moment. "Okay," he said at last. "Let's not guess. Let's look." He helped her lie back on the table. The gel on her skin was cold. The ultrasound wand pressed against her lower belly. On the screen beside them, gray and black shapes moved and shifted like a strange underwater world. Ray watched Isaiah's face. At first, He looked simply focused. His eyes narrowed a little, his lips pressed together. Then something changed. The muscle in his jaw tightened, his eyebrows pulled in. He moved the wand, changed the angle, looked again. Ray felt her heart beat faster. "What is it?" she whispered. "Do you see something?" Isaiah did not answer right away. He froze the image on the screen and leaned in closer. Finally, he straightened up and set the wand back in its holder. "Renee," he said slowly, "I need you to look at this with me." He stepped aside so she could see a darker spot on the gray image, a shape that did not blend in with the rest. "Do you see this?" he pointed. "This little shape here in your uterus? It is not part of you. It is a foreign body. And by the way it looks, I believe it has been there for many years." Ray stared at the screen. The room seemed to tilt for a second. "A foreign body?" she repeated. "Like, what does that mean?" Isaiah took a breath. "It looks like an old-style intrauterine device, an IUD. The design is not one we use anymore. It is the kind that was pulled off the market because of serious side effects." Ray felt the blood drain from her face. "I have never had an IUD," she said. Her voice sounded tiny to her own ears. "Never. I'm scared of them. My husband knows that. He would never." Her words broke off in the air between them. Isaiah picked up her chart and flipped through the pages. "There's no record here of an IUD ever being placed," he said quietly, "and devices like this do not just appear on their own. Someone has to put them in, but they never just show up." Ray lay back against the pillow and stared at the ceiling, the poster, the white tiles, anything but the screen. For the first time, the whisper inside her grew into a roar. Something is wrong. And now, she knew, it was not just in her head. Ray sat very still on the exam table, while Dr. Isaiah Cole looked at her, the printed lab sheet in his hand. The air in the room felt heavy. Her heart beat so loudly she could almost hear it. "Renee," he said at last, "your inflammatory markers are very high. That means your body has been fighting something for a long time. It matches what we saw on the ultrasound. This is not just age. It is not in your head." Those simple words hit harder than any fancy medical term. Not just age. Not in your head. For months she had heard the opposite from her own husband. "So what does that mean?" Ray asked. Her voice sounded small. "Pills? More tests? Do I just wait and see?" "No," Isaiah said. His tone was calm, but now there was steel under it. "We are past the wait-and-see stage. You have a foreign device in your uterus. It is very old. The tissue around it looks angry. We have to take it out." Ray stared at him. "When?" "Today," he said. "Not next month. Not next week. Today. I'm sending you to Fulton County General Medical Center. I'm calling a surgeon I trust. His name is Dr. Leonard Marshall. People call him Leo. If my own sister had this problem, I would send her to him." The word today seemed to echo inside Rhea's head like a shout in a small room. She had expected another bottle of pills, another talk about hormones and stress. Surgery today had not even crossed her mind. "Is it really that serious?" she whispered. "Yes," Isaiah said. "You have a device in your body that never should have been there this long, maybe never at all. Every day it stays, it can do more damage. Taking it out is the safest thing we can do for you now." Ray looked at her hands. They were trembling in her lap. "Okay," she said softly. "Do what you have to do." "Thank you for trusting me," Isaiah replied. "My staff will call an ambulance. I'll send your chart and the images. I'm going to call Dr. Marshall and tell him exactly what we found." The ride across Atlanta felt unreal. There was no siren, no flashing lights. The city outside the back windows looked normal. Cars stopped at red lights. People waited at bus stops. A man pushed a lawnmower in front of a small brick house. Inside the ambulance, Ray lay strapped to the stretcher, watching a strip of gray sky slide past the window. A paramedic checked her blood pressure and wrote numbers on a small tablet. "You doing okay, ma'am?" he asked. "I'm going to surgery because there's something inside me I never agreed to," Ray said. "So, not really." The paramedic gave a short nod, not trying to joke or argue. "Fair enough," he said. "Well, get you there." When they rolled her into Fulton County General, the light and sound hit all at once. Monitors beeped, wheels squeaked, voices called out names and room numbers. The smell of cleaning chemicals filled the air. They took her to a small pre-op bay with a curtain for a door. A nurse checked her ID bracelet 3 times, placed an IV, and asked the same questions over and over. Name, birth date, allergies, past surgeries. After a while, a tall black man in blue scrubs pulled the curtain aside. His hair was sprinkled with gray. His eyes were sharp but kind. "Miss Parker?" he said. "I'm Dr. Leonard Marshall. Most folks call me Leo. I'll be your surgeon today." Ray tried to read his face. He seemed calm, the kind of calm that came from doing hard things many times. "Dr. Cole sent over your tests and the ultrasound," he said, opening a thin folder. "He also called me. Has right to be worried. There is an old device in your uterus. It looks like a Seraph IUD. Those were pulled from use years ago because they cause serious trouble. Bleeding, infection, even cancer." The word cancer made Ray's chest tighten. "Do I have it?" she asked. "We don't know yet," Leo said, and he did not flinch away from the truth. "We have to send tissue to the lab and let them look at it under a microscope. But this I do know. Leaving that device in your body gives it more time to hurt you. Taking it out gives you a chance to heal." He handed her a clipboard. "I have to go over the risks with you. There is a risk of bleeding, a risk of infection, a risk the damage is worse than it looks, and I might need to remove more tissue than we hope. But even with those risks, surgery is still safer than doing nothing." Ray stared at the consent form. The words seemed to float, but she could see her own name printed there in clear black letters at the top. "Has anyone ever died from this?" she asked in a low voice. "Some have," Leo said quietly. "Not everyone, not most people, but enough that these IUDs were banned and should have been destroyed. That's why I take this very seriously." He waited. He did not push. He did not rush her. Ray thought of all the nights she had folded around a heating pad on the couch, biting her lip so Quentin would not hear her cry. She thought of all the times he had said, "You're fine, baby. It's just your age." She picked up the pen with shaking fingers and signed her name. The nurses moved with a new kind of energy after that. One placed a blue cap over Ray's hair. Another checked her IV. A third pushed her bed down the hallway toward the operating room. The lights overhead passed in a slow line. Ray watched them, one by one, and tried not to think about what she might wake up to, or if she would wake up at all. The operating room was colder than she expected. Everything was white, blue, or silver. Machines beeped softly. A round light hung over the table like a small sun. A woman in a mask leaned over her. "Hi, Miss Parker. I'm Dr. Singh, the anesthesiologist. My job is to keep you asleep and safe. You focus on breathing. I'll focus on the rest." "Can you make sure I wake up?" Ray asked, half serious, half trying to smile. "That's the plan," Dr. Singh said, her eyes crinkling. "We do this every day." A cool feeling moved up Ray's arm from the IV line. Her eyelids started to feel heavy. "Count back from 10 for me," Dr. Singh said. 10, Ray whispered. 9, 8. The world went dark before she reached 7. Dr. Leonard Leo Marshall focused on the work in front of him. He had done many surgeries, but what he saw when he reached the foreign object made him pause for half a breath. It was an IUD, just as he had expected, but not a clean, shiny one like in a textbook. This one was blackened and dull. Its tiny arms were buried deep in the uterine wall, like claws sunk into wood. The tissue around it was thick and angry red. "Good grief," he muttered. "A seraph. Haven't seen one of these in a long time." The scrub nurse glanced at the field. "I thought all of those were supposed to be destroyed," she said softly. "They were," Leo answered. "They're tied to infections and cancer risk. None of these should still be in a human body." He worked slowly, freeing each arm of the device from the damaged tissue. He did not rush. Every move had to be careful. The metal had sat there for years. The muscle did not want to let go. When the last bit of metal pulled free, he lifted the device up for a better look. Up close, it looked even worse. Dark film covered its surface. The small edges were stained. "Specimen cup," he said. The nurse handed him a small clear container with a screw-on lid. Leo dropped the IUD inside. Through the plastic he could see the tiny raised marks of the serial number. "Read this down for me," he said. N3847. N3847. "Well, want a record of that." Then he turned back to Reyes' body. The work was not finished. He cleaned away the worst of the inflamed tissue, stopped several small bleeds, and took tiny samples from the most damaged-looking spots. Each sample went into its own little jar with Reyes' name and the date. When he was done and the stitches were neat, he stepped back and let the team start waking her up. Reyes' first thought when she opened her eyes in the recovery room was that everything felt heavy. Her eyelids were heavy, her limbs were heavy. Her lower belly hurt in a deep, sore way, but the sharp, twisting pain was gone. A monitor beeped nearby. A nurse checked her blood pressure and smiled when she saw Ray looking around. "You're awake, Miss Parker," she said. "That's the hard part over." A little later, Dr. Marshall came to her bedside. He had taken off his cap and mask. His face looked tired but steady. "The device is out," he said. "It was embedded very deeply and caused a lot of damage. I took several tissue samples and sent them to the lab. Some areas did not look good, so I won't pretend this isn't serious. But the first big step is done. It's no longer inside you." He held up the clear cup so she could see. The small, dark shape lay at the bottom, still and ugly. "This was in your body for about 8 years, Leo said. "It's a Seraph IUD. These devices were banned. Each one has a serial number. This one is N3847. We've already started the process to track where it came from and who signed for it." Ray stared at the little piece of metal, her eyes filled with tears. "I never agreed to that," she whispered. "I was scared of IUDs. I said that over and over." "I believe you," Leo said simply. "Right now, your job is to rest. When the pathology report comes back, well, talk again. No secrets. You deserve to know exactly what was done to your body." Ray let the tears fall onto her pillow. Fear sat heavy in her chest, but under the fear, something else began to move. For the first time in 8 years, the thing hurting her was not hidden deep inside, wrapped in excuses and soft words. It was in a clear cup, out in the open. And somewhere deep down, Ray felt the smallest spark of something she had not felt in a long time. Hope that the truth, like that piece of metal, could finally be pulled into the light. The room felt the same, but she did not. Something small and stubborn inside her refused to die. The next morning, the room at Fulton County General was quiet. Machines hummed. Reyes' belly ached, but the stabbing pain was gone. A banned device had been inside her for 8 years. A stranger had taken it out and dropped it into a cup. The man she shared a bed with had kept saying, "You're fine." If that was a lie, what else was? A small knock came at the door. "Miss Parker?" a woman's voice asked. Ray turned her head. A black woman in a gray suit stood just inside. She held a notebook, a recorder, and wore a badge on her jacket. "Yes," Ray said. "That's me." The woman stepped in and closed the door. "My name is Detective Kiara Thompson," she said. "Atlanta Police Department, Medical Crimes Unit. Doctor. Marshall asked me to come. Do you feel up to some questions?" "A detective?" Ray repeated. "I thought this was just medical." "It is," Kiara said, pulling a chair to the bed. "But sometimes what happens in a clinic is not just a mistake. It can be a crime. I'm not here to push you. I want to understand how a banned IUD ended up in your body." She set the recorder on the table. "I'm going to turn this on, okay? You can stop any time." Ray nodded. Kiara pressed a button. A red light came on. "For the record, please state your full name," Kiara said. "Renee Parker. People call me Ray. And your age?" 42. "Do you understand why you're in the hospital today?" "Yes," Ray said. "They did surgery to remove an IUD I never agreed to. They think it's been inside me about 8 years." "Let's go back," Kiara said. "When was the last time you were put to sleep for a procedure before yesterday?" 8 years ago, Ray said. "I had my appendix taken out." "Where?" Kiara asked. "At my husband's clinic, Buckhead Women's Health Center. Has the medical director there, an OB-GYN. "So your husband is a gynecologist," she repeated, "and he has been your main doctor for how long?" "About 5 years, Ray said, "since he opened the clinic." "And the appendix surgery?" Kiara asked. "Whose idea was it to have it done at his clinic instead of a hospital?" "His," Ray said. "He said there was no reason to sit in an ER. He said he trusted his staff more." I didn't argue. "I trusted him more than anyone." "What do you remember about that surgery?" Kiara asked. "Not much," Ray said. "They put an IV in. Someone put a mask on me. They told me to count backwards. I woke up with stitches on my side. Quentin was there. He said everything went fine. Do you remember signing anything about an IUD? Birth control? Anything like that? Kiara asked. Ray shook her head. No. I've always been scared of IUDs. I told him that early in our marriage. I never would have signed for that. Okay, Kiara said. Dr. Marshall told you the device he removed is a Seraph IUD, right? Yes, Ray said. He said those were banned. They were, Kiara said. They caused infections and raised cancer risk. Clinics were supposed to send them back or destroy them. Each one has a serial number. The one taken out of you is N3847. Ray repeated the number in her head. N3847. It sounded like a tag on something that should have been burned, not hidden inside her. A nurse stepped in. Detective? The device lab is on the phone, she said. It's about that serial number. I can put them on speaker. Please, Kiara said. The nurse rolled in a phone cart, pushed a few buttons, then left. A man's voice came through the speaker. This is Michael Harris from the Medical Device Tracking Lab. Am I speaking with Detective Thompson? Yes, Kiara said. You're on speaker with Miss Parker. Go ahead. We ran serial N3847, Harris said. It's a Seraph IUD shipped to Buckhead Women's Health Center in late 2013. Our records show it was logged as defective, disposed on March 15, 2014. Disposed? Kiara asked. Meaning it was supposed to be destroyed. Correct, Harris said. The form says it was removed from stock and placed in a biohazard container. The log is signed by the clinic's medical director, Dr. Quentin David Parker. We can send you the paperwork. Do that, Kiara said. Thank you. The call ended. The room went very still. Her husband's name had just come out of a stranger's mouth, tied to the device that had been poisoning her. Quentin signed that it was destroyed, Ray said quietly. Yes, Kiara said. And 8 years later, Dr. Marshall found the same device inside you. The timing matches your appendix surgery. Same clinic, same doctor in charge. Ray stared at the wall. She remembered how Head called her brave girl, how Head said, "You'll thank me later. I take better care of you than any stranger ever would." Her stomach turned. Miss Parker, Kiara said softly, I need to be very clear. Putting any device into a patient's body without consent is a crime. Doing it with a banned device that carries serious cancer risk is worse. Under Georgia law, we are looking at aggravated battery. With the level of damage Dr. Marshall described, the district attorney may also consider an attempted murder charge. The words hit like ice. Attempted. Murder? Ray whispered. It will be up to the DA how to charge it, Kiara said. But from what I see, this was not an accident. A doctor took a device that should have been thrown away, signed that it was destroyed, and it ended up inside his own wife during a surgery she trusted him to oversee. Ray swallowed. Part of her still wanted to say, he wouldn't. But another part, the part that had been whispering something is wrong for months, felt a steady anger rise. What happens now? She asked. Now I open a case, Kiara said. Ill. Request records from Buckhead Women's Health Center, surgery notes, consent forms, device logs. Ill talk to staff who were there. Ill work with the district attorney's office. I would also like you to give a full statement when you feel ready. That means court, Ray said. Probably, Kiara answered. You don't have to decide everything today. Right now, your job is to heal. But know this. What happened to you is not just hormones or just getting older. You were not crazy. Someone used your trust and your body in a way the law calls a crime. There was another knock. Dr. Marshall stepped in with a slim folder. Is this a bad time? He asked. No, Kiara said, standing. I was just finishing. She turned to Ray. Miss Parker, I'll be in touch, she said. You are not alone in this. Then she left. Leo came to the side of the bed. We have your first pathology report, he said. You want it straight? Yes, Ray said. No more half-stories. The tissue around where that IUD sat shows severe dysplasia, Leo said. That means precancerous changes, stage 3. The good news is, we took out the thing pushing your cells the wrong way. We caught this before it became full cancer. but we can't pretend it's nothing. You'll need close follow-up and probably another procedure to remove more of the damaged area. An oncologist will see you." "So I don't have cancer yet," Ray said, "but I was headed toward it." "Yes," Leo said. "If you hadn't seen Dr. Cole when you did, another year or two could have changed everything. And in my opinion, the damage is directly tied to that Seraph IUD being inside you so long." Ray let out a long breath. Fear sat heavy in her chest, but beside the fear, something sharper took shape. 8 years ago, she had gone to sleep trusting Quentin to protect her. Now the mask was gone. Her pain was not just age. Her body had been telling the truth all along, and now she had a surgeon, a detective, and a new doctor who believed it. For the first time, when she thought about Quentin, she did not see a white coat and a wedding ring. She saw a man who had made a choice, and under the hurt, a thin, strong line of resolve pulled tight. Her life, her body, her future would not belong to him anymore. They would belong to her. Outside the window, morning traffic moved on, not knowing her whole life had quietly changed direction forever. Ray went home on the third day. Her belly hurt and she walked slow, but the sharp, twisting pain was gone. In its place was a hard thought. This did not just happen. Someone had put a banned device in her body. Someone had signed a lie in a logbook. Before she left the hospital, Detective Kiara Thompson came back. "We ran the serial number," Kiara said. "N3847 was shipped to Buckhead Women's Health Center. The records say it was defective and destroyed 8 years ago. The form is signed by your husband." Ray felt her throat tighten. "Destroyed," she whispered. "But it was inside me. That's why I'm here," Kiara said. "Now we need proof that the same device in our database is the one doctor Marshall took out of you. I can't search your husband's office until a judge signs a warrant. You can walk into spaces you already had access to: his office, his safe, his paper logs. If you see device books or forms you normally could see, take clear pictures. That might get us that warrant faster." "You're asking me to walk into his world and look for evidence against him," Ray said. "I'm asking you to protect yourself," Kiara answered. "You don't touch his computer. You don't force anything open. If you feel unsafe, you leave and call me." Ray thought of the black IUD in the clear cup, the stitches in her belly, the word precancerous. For years she had tried to be loyal and quiet. That had nearly killed her. "I'll go," she said, "before he comes back from Savannah." 2 days later, she stood in front of the glass doors of Buckhead Women's Health Center. Soft music played and baby pictures lined the pale blue walls. It looked calm and safe, the way it always had. The receptionist looked up. "Mrs. Parker, we heard you'd been in the hospital. Are you okay?" "I'm recovering," Ray said. "I need to grab some papers from Dr. Parker's office," Detective Thompson called ahead. The woman picked up the phone, spoke softly, then nodded. "Security will meet you by the back elevator." Ray walked past the waiting room chairs where she had once sat as the doctor's wife. A tall guard met her by the elevator. "Mrs. Parker? Miss Thompson told me you were coming. The doctor's not here. I'll walk you up." On the second floor, the hallway was quiet. At the end, a brass sign read, "Dr. Quentin D. Parker, Medical Director." Ray knew the code to the lock. Years ago, Quentin had shown her so she could surprise him with lunch. Back then, it had felt sweet. Now it felt like another trick. She typed in the numbers. The lock clicked. "I'll be right out here," the guard said. "Call me if you need anything." Ray stepped inside. The office smelled like Quentin's cologne and coffee. Dark shelves held books and awards. A big desk sat by the window. On one corner, a silver frame showed a beach picture of Ray and Quentin, arms around each other, smiling like nothing bad could ever touch them. She turned away. In the corner was a wall safe, half hidden behind a diploma. Quentin had once opened it to show her his important things. The code was his mother's birthday. It had never changed. Ray punched in the numbers. The safe door popped open. Inside were 2 watches, a velvet box, and 2 thick dark logbooks with dates on the spine. She pulled out the one marked Devices 2000 and 13-2015 and set it on the desk. The pages were filled with neat lines: device type, serial number, date received, date used or destroyed, patient ID, signature. Ray turned to March 2014. Her heart pounded as she slid her finger down the page. Seraph IUD, N3847. Status: defective, disposed. Date: the 15th of March 2014. Signed, Dr. Quentin D. Parker. There it was. Proof in his own handwriting that the device inside her was one he had claimed to throw away. Her hands stopped shaking. She pulled out her phone and took clear photos of the entry, then of the pages before and after. Some lines looked off devices marked disposed with no pickup code, missing IDs, but she didn't stop to study them. She had just closed the book when the door opened. A young black woman in a white coat stepped inside and froze. Her badge read, Tasha Reed, RN. She held something against her stomach, half hidden by her coat. "Oh," Tasha said. "Mrs. Parker. I didn't know anyone was in here. Security let me in," Ray said. "I'm getting some records." Tasha nodded too fast. Her cheeks were pink. Her eyes darted to the safe, then to Ray's hands. "Are you okay?" Ray asked. "You look shaken." "I'm fine," Tasha said. "I just needed to grab something from Dr. Parker's desk." As she shifted, a small pink and white box slid into view. Ray knew that box. Every woman did. A home pregnancy test. Ray's chest tightened. "What's that?" she asked. "It's personal," Tasha said quickly, pressing the box closer. "It doesn't involve the clinic." A thin gold ring on Tasha's right hand glinted as she moved. It had a tiny diamond and a simple band. It looked almost exactly like Reyes' wedding ring. "That's a nice ring," Ray said. "Who gave it to you?" Tasha's fingers curled to hide it. Her throat moved as she swallowed. "A close friend," she said. "Someone who cares about me." Ray held her gaze. "Is that friend my husband?" she asked quietly. The room went silent. Tasha's eyes filled with tears. Before she could answer, footsteps sounded in the hall. "Tasha, there you are," a woman's voice called. A woman in her 40s stepped into the doorway. She moved slow, one hand on her lower back. Her belly was round under a loose dress. Her face was tired but bright with hope. Ray had seen her in the waiting room. The name came back, Carla Jenkins. Carla walked in without seeing Ray and hugged Tasha with one arm. "I just wanted to say thank you again," Carla said. "You and Dr. Parker have been such a blessing. I still can't believe he helped us get that apartment. The kids love having their own rooms. And now this little one on the way." She patted her belly and smiled. "Feels like a miracle." Tasha went stiff. Her eyes flicked toward Ray. Carla followed her gaze and finally saw her. "Mrs. Parker," she said quickly. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just telling Tasha how grateful I am. Not every doctor would help a single mom with 2 kids and one on the way, you know." Ray heard only the key words. Apartment, kids, one on the way, ring, test. "How many people is he helping?" she asked, her voice low. No one answered. The guard appeared at the door with his phone in his hand. "Mrs. Parker," he said, "the doctor just called from Savannah. He asked why you're in his office. I told him you were here for papers," like the detective said. "He didn't sound happy." Tasha's eyes overflowed. "I didn't know about the IUD," she whispered. "He said you were born sick, that you couldn't have children, that y'all were basically done. I thought I was building a real family, not stealing one." Ray felt anger burn through the last of her doubt. "He made me sick," she said. "He made the empty place he told you about." Carla covered her mouth with her hand. Ray slipped her phone into her bag. The pictures were safe. The logbook would not be able to vanish. Neither would the look on Tasha's face. "You both need to tell Detective Thompson exactly what happened," Ray said. "He doesn't protect the women in his life. He uses them. Don't let him use you anymore." She walked past them to the hall. The guard stepped aside. As Ray moved down the corridor, the baby photos on the walls watched her. Once, they had made her dream about children. Now they reminded her what had been stolen and what she still could save. Outside, the Buckhead sun was bright. Ray closed her eyes for one breath. Inside that clinic, she had just seen 2 kinds of evidence: ink on a page and fear in a young woman's eyes. Both pointed to the same man. Her days of doubting herself were over. From here on, she would not be the quiet patient or the loyal wife in the background. She would be the witness. Ray drove home from Buckhead with her jaw clenched until it hurt. The city moved like any other afternoon. Nothing on the outside showed that, in one morning, her whole life had split open. She had stood in Quentin's clinic office, opened his safe, and seen his lie in the device log. She had watched a young nurse hold a pregnancy test and a ring. Now she knew two things for sure. The banned IUD came from his clinic, and he was building a secret life without her. By the time she turned onto their quiet street in southwest Atlanta, her hands were numb on the steering wheel. The little brick house with white railings looked the same. Once she had called it our nest, now it felt like a box. She sat in the driveway for a moment and held her belly. The stitches from surgery pulled when she breathed too deep. That ache, plus the word precancerous, plus Detective Kiara's calm voice, pushed her forward. "You already had access to his office and records," Kiara had said. "If you see device logs or anything that matches the serial number, take clear pictures. Don't force anything. Don't touch his computer unless you feel you must. But remember, judges believe paper." Ray unlocked the front door and stepped into quiet. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and old coffee. Their wedding photo hung on the wall, the younger versions of them smiling under a tree. For a second, she wanted to rip it down. Instead, she walked straight to his home office. The office sat at the back of the house. Dark shelves held medical books and awards. His Emory degree hung above the desk. A framed article from a local paper called him Atlanta's Guardian of Women's Health. Ray had once been proud of that headline. Now it made her stomach twist. She sat at his desk, woke the computer, and stared at the login screen. This machine held his work, his notes, his plans. It also might hold the truth about what Head done to her. He had gone into her body without asking. That thought settled the question. She typed in the only password he ever used for anything, his mother's birthday. The desktop opened. On the left side of the screen, blue folders sat in tidy rows. Patients, lectures, taxes, research, personal. One name hit her like a shout. Forever Now. Ray moved the mouse. Her hand shook, but she clicked. The folder opened into a grid of files. The first rows were photos. She tapped the first one. Tasha smiled from a park blanket, sunshine on her face. In her lap sat a little girl with bright eyes and puffball hair. Quentin knelt beside them, his arm around both, his smile big and easy. The file name read, Maya, age E3, Park Day. Ray clicked the next one. A boy with soft curls sat on Quentin's shoulders, laughing. The shape of the child's nose and mouth matched Quentin almost exactly. File name, Jalen. First, Zoo, Trip. More photos filled the screen. Birthdays with balloons, Christmas mornings, beach sunsets. Tasha and Quentin at a restaurant, his hand over hers. Quentin in a hospital room holding a newborn while Tasha lay in the bed, sweaty and smiling. He had the same proud look he used to wear when he talked about someday with Ray. Ray clicked into a subfolder called Emails. Dozens of files appeared, each with a date and a subject. She opened one at random. From Quentin to Tasha. Subject: You worry too much, baby. I told you Ray can't have kids. Her body was never built for it. Doctors told her that long before we met. What we have is the real family. She has comfort and my name. You and the babies are my forever now. When the timing is right, the paper will match the truth. Ray's chest burned. Her body was never built for it. He had said those same words to her in their bedroom while she cried about another negative test. She had thought he was repeating something painful Head heard from a specialist. Now she saw Head turned it into a line to calm them both. She opened a file dated the day of her appendix surgery 8 years earlier. From Quentin to Tasha, subject, taken care of. Everything went smooth today. Ray was under a little longer, but that gave me time to take care of what we talked about. Let's just say I gave her a little gift she'll never know about. No more questions about kids. That door is closed. We can plan our life without her changing her mind every few months. Ray pressed a hand over her mouth. That gift had a serial number now, N3847. It had been logged as disposed in his clinic book and then pushed deep into her body while she slept. In another email, months later, Tasha had written, I still feel guilty sometimes. What if she finds out? What if she gets sick because of what you did? Quentin's reply was cold. Stop! I am the doctor. She will be fine. Worst case, she gets some fibroids or menopause stuff a little early. Believe me, it's safer than a late pregnancy for her. She has a good house, good insurance. You and the kids have me. Everyone wins if we stay smart. Everyone wins. A message from 2 years earlier made her fingers go numb. If Ray ever does get really sick, Quentin wrote, I can step away as the husband who tried his best. People understand when doctors burn out from cancer at home. The court will be gentle. That keeps the practice and house safe. Our side stays whole. I'm thinking about legacy, not feelings. Legacy, not feelings. He had taken their marriage vows and turned them into a business plan. Ray clicked out of the emails. Another subfolder sat in Forever Now, Money. Inside were scanned bank statements. A line repeated every month, $5,000 to an account in Tasha Reed's name. Description, support, Maya and Jalen. There was a lease for an apartment in Decatur, Tasha as tenant, Quentin as guarantor. There were life insurance forms with Maya and Jalen listed as beneficiaries, college savings accounts with their names at the top. Finally, she opened a spreadsheet called Plan. Rows listed their joint assets, HOSE, clinic shares, 401, CA, IRA. In a side column, short notes in his handwriting, beside house, if she gets cancer, argue stability. Keep house in my name so kids have somewhere to visit. Beside clinic shares, frame any fight as stress from illness. Offer small buyout if needed. Beside retirement, she doesn't track statements. Keep mail in office. He had written about her like she was a problem, not a partner. For a long second, Ray just sat and listened to the hum of the computer. If you're still listening to this story, Malik's calm voice would later tell the YouTube audience over this scene, this might be the place your heart drops into your stomach. If you've had that feeling something is wrong and people told you you're dramatic or sensitive, hear me, your body is not a liar. And if this video is hitting close to home, tap the like button so it reaches more women who need a push to start asking questions. One click can matter. Ray pulled herself back to the desk. She opened the top drawer and found a small flash drive from some conference, still in its plastic. She unwrapped it, plugged it into the computer, and began copying. Forever Now. Emails. Money. Plan. A progress bar crawled across the screen. 10 files. 32. 57. 89. While it copied, she looked out the window. The backyard was quiet. Years ago, Quentin had pointed to a corner by the fence and said, "That's where the swing set goes when the time is right." She had nodded, picturing a little one with her eyes and his smile. Now, she knew the time he was waiting on was not fertility or money. He had been waiting for his secret family to be big enough. The computer chimed, "Transfer complete." Ray ejected the drive and slipped it inside the inner pocket of her jacket. She closed every folder, returned the screen to its plain blue background, and set the mouse exactly where it had been. On the shelf by the door, their wedding picture seemed to watch her. 2 younger people stood under a tree, his arm around her shoulders, eyes bright with trust. She remembered the way her heart had pounded that day when she said, "I do," believing she was stepping into a life where her body and future would always be safe with him. "Renee, you didn't know," she whispered to the frame. She turned the picture face down. In the hallway, her phone buzzed. A text from Kiara lit the screen. "Miss Parker, this is Detective Thompson. Just checking in. When you're ready, we need to talk next steps." Ray typed with steady fingers. "I went to the clinic and the house. I have photos of the device log and copies of his emails and money records. I'm ready." She hit send and slipped the phone back into her pocket. Fear still sat in her chest. So did grief for the life she thought she had. But under both, something new had taken root. For years, Quentin had written her pain into his private plan. Now, for the first time, she had her own plan too. She had proof. And proof was how her story was going to move from whispers in her body to a judge's bench and a jury's ears. Detective Kiara Thompson did not waste time. That afternoon, Ray sat at her kitchen table while Kiara and an older officer named Banks laid a few papers between the salt shaker and the napkin holder. "Here's what we've got," Kiara said, tapping her pen. Serial number N3847 belongs to a Seraph IUD sent to Buckhead Women's Health Center. The clinic log says it was disposed of 8 years ago, signed by your husband, Doctor. Marshall just pulled that same number out of your body. And we have emails where he calls it a little gift he gave you during surgery so you couldn't have kids. Ray's fingers tightened around her glass of water. "And the money records," she said. "The lease in Tasha's name. The transfers for Maya and Jalen. He planned all of it. Banks slid a clear plastic evidence bag closer. Inside sat the blackened IUD in its small cup. "This starts the official trail," he said. "From the hospital to us to the DA to court." Ray stared at the tiny shape. It looked almost harmless in plastic. Kiara watched her face. "I need you to be sure," she said. "If we move forward, this means statements, hearings, and probably a trial. You'll have to tell this story more than once. Are you willing to do that?" For most of her life, Ray tried not to make a fuss. She had swallowed pain to keep other people calm. But the ache in her belly, the word precancerous, and the pictures of Quentin's other family pushed against that old habit. "Yes," she said, "I'm not keeping his secrets anymore." Kiara nodded. "All right," she said. "I'll take this to a judge tonight and ask for a search warrant and an arrest warrant. Until those are signed, you do not warn him. Don't meet him alone anywhere. If he shows up angry, you call 911 or you call me. Being alive is brave enough." "I hear you," Ray said. Ray tried to lie down in the bedroom but could not relax. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the clinic log entry, Quentin's email about closing the door on kids, or Tasha's ring flashing under the fluorescent lights. She ended up dozing on the couch in the living room, one arm around her sore middle. Her sleep came in thin slices, full of half-dreams. In another part of Atlanta, Kiara stood in front of a judge's desk inside the courthouse. She did not bring emotion, only facts, the serial match, the logbook, the emails, the medical report. The judge read, frowned, asked a few sharp questions, then signed 2 sets of papers. Morning reached Ray's Street in southwest Atlanta in a pale wash of light. She woke with a sore neck, her blanket twisted around her legs, and her phone buzzing under her cheek. A text from Kiara lit the screen. "Warrant signed. We're on our way to you and to the clinic. If he gets there first, do not open the door. We're 10 minutes out." Ray sat up too fast and winced as the stitches in her belly pulled. She moved more slowly to check both doors, sliding the deadbolts and peeking through the blinds. The house seemed to be holding its breath. 7 minutes later, tires crunched in the driveway. Ray looked through a sliver at the edge of the curtain and saw Quentin's dark sedan, not a police car. Her heart kicked hard. He climbed out in his usual pressed shirt and slacks. His tie was loose. His jaw was tight. He did not look like a man who thought he'd done anything wrong. He looked annoyed. He pounded on the door. "Ray, open up," he called. "We're not doing this." Ray's hands shook, but she pressed call on Kiara's number. Kiara answered on the first ring. "We're almost there," she said. "Is that him?" "Yes," Ray whispered. Hez banging on the door. "Do not open it," Kiara said. "Stay on the line with me." Another heavy knock rattled the wood. "Ray, stop acting like a child," Quentin shouted. "I know you went through my office. I know that little detective has been filling your head with nonsense. Stealing confidential files. Do you know how illegal that is? You're the one in trouble, not me. Open this door." Ray backed away. For years, that sharp voice had made her fold herself smaller. Today, it made her remember the emails where he called her born sick and told Tasha their love story was the real family. Outside, another car pulled up. Through the blinds, she saw a flash of red and blue. "Atlanta Police," a firm voice called. "Step away from the door, sir." Silence dropped for a second. "What?" Quentin snapped. "Ray, did you call the police on your own husband? This is private. You don't drag strangers into our marriage because you're emotional after surgery." On the phone, Kiara's voice stayed calm. "We're here. You're okay. Stay inside." Ray moved to the side window and peeked out. Detective Kiara stood on the walk in her gray suit and badge. Officer Banks was beside her in uniform, one hand resting near his belt. Another patrol officer flanked the other side. Kiara held a paper in one hand. "Doctor, Quentin David Parker," she said, voice clear. "We have a warrant for your arrest on suspicion of aggravated battery and related charges. We also have a warrant to search Buckhead Women's Health Center. Raise your hands where we can see them." Quentin stared at them, disbelief and anger mixing on his face. "You're making a huge mistake," he said. "You understand that, right? I'm a board-certified OB/GYN. I've delivered hundreds of babies in this city. My wife is confused and under stress. You're letting her drag my name through the mud because she doesn't understand medical decisions." "Hands up, doctor," Banks repeated. Quentin slowly lifted his hands, but his eyes searched for Reyes' window. For a heartbeat, their gazes met through the glass. Once, that look would have pulled her toward him. Now it made her feel tired. "Turn around," Kiara said. "Place your hands behind your back." As Banks stepped forward with the cuffs, Quentin twisted his head toward the house. "Ray, say something," he called. "Tell them you don't want this. Think about everything I've done for you. The house, the trips, the way I've cared for your body when nobody else would. You're really going to throw all that away over one thing you don't understand?" The metal cuffs clicked shut. "You have the right to remain silent," Banks began. Quentin kept talking. "You are going to be so embarrassed when this falls apart," he said. "My lawyer will eat this case for breakfast." Kiara didn't argue. "You can save it for court," she said. "Right now, we're following the judge's order." Ray opened the front door just enough to step onto the porch. Her legs shook, but she stayed upright. The early air felt cool on her face. Kiara glanced back, checking that she was steady. "You don't have to talk today," Kiara said quietly. "You've already done enough." Ray shook her head. "I need to say one thing," she replied. She looked straight at Quentin. "You didn't care for me," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was clear. "You controlled me. You put something inside my body without asking and called it love. You built a family somewhere else and planned to leave me sick and alone. I don't owe you silence. I owe you the truth." For once, Quentin had no fast answer. His shoulders sagged a little. Banks guided him to the patrol car. A neighbor down the street paused and stared, then slowly walked on with her dog. When the car door closed on Quentin and the vehicle pulled away, Ray felt a tight band inside her chest loosen. She sat down on the porch step before her knees could give out. Kiara walked back up the path and sat one step below her, leaving space. "How's your belly?" she asked. "Hurting more than before?" Ray let out a breath that was almost a laugh. "It hurts," she said, "but this time I know why. That makes it different." "That's fair," Kiara said. "From here on, things move into paperwork and courtrooms. It'll be slow. There will be days when you're tired of talking about it. On those days, remember this morning. Remember that you weren't crazy. Remember that he's the one in cuffs, not you." Ray nodded. "For 8 years," she said, "I thought my own body was the problem. But the problem was standing in my kitchen, wearing a white coat. And now he's in a holding cell," Kiara said. "That's not the end of the story. But it's a start." Inside the house, the turned-down wedding photo waited on the shelf. In the hospital, a banned IUD in a labeled bag waited in a locked drawer. At the courthouse, a file with Quentin's name on it waited on a desk. Ray stood carefully and went back inside. The rooms looked the same, but nothing in her life was in the same place. The man who had decided, without asking, that she would never be a mother was no longer free to make secret choices about her body. His plan was now evidence. For the first time in years, when she tried to picture her future, she did not see his shadow in every corner. She did not know yet what would fill that open space, but she knew one thing for sure. Whatever came next would be built on her choices, not his. The months between Quentin's arrest and the trial moved slow for Ray Parker. Her body healed. Dr. Marshall cleaned the damaged tissue in one last small surgery. Each visit after that, he brought simple good news. The precancerous cells were not growing. But Reyes' mind did not feel calm. She met with the district attorney and with Detective Kiara Thompson. They sat in small rooms and repeated the story of the surgery. Dates, times, forms. Every answer had to match what was written on paper. Each time someone asked, "Did you ever agree to an IUD?" Ray said, "No," and felt the same mix inside. Tired from saying it, stronger for saying it. The day of the trial at the Fulton County Courthouse came at last. Ray stood at the bottom of the long stone steps, took a breath, and climbed. Kiara walked beside her, quiet but steady. Inside, reporters, medical staff, and curious citizens filled the benches. Ray sat with the state. The prosecutor, a calm woman named Angela Price, shuffled her notes. Across the room, Quentin sat in a dark suit beside his lawyer. He looked thinner and more gray. He never turned his head toward Ray. Judge Denise Walker came in. The bailiff called, "Court is now in session," and everyone rose, then sat. Angela stood and faced the jury. "This case is about consent," she said. The defendant, Dr. Quentin David Parker, took a banned medical device and hid it in his wife's body without her permission. He did it while she was asleep on an operating table. He then lied to her for years while she was in pain. The evidence will show this was not a mistake. It was a plan. She walked them through the main points. The appendix surgery at Buckhead Women's Health Center, the Seraph IUD with serial number N3847 that should have been destroyed, the years of pain, the discovery by Dr. Isaiah Cole and Dr. Leonard Leo Marshall, the clinic log with Quentin's signature, the little gift email, the secret children. When you hear it all together, she said, you will see how each choice stacked on the last and how Mrs. Parker's body paid the price. Quentin's lawyer rose next. He talked about a marriage in trouble and stress. He said Quentin believed pregnancy would be dangerous and made a judgment call. He said the device log was sloppy paperwork and the emails private talk. He asked the jury not to turn a sad family problem into a crime. Then the state began to call witnesses. Dr. Isaiah Cole was first. He told the jury how Ray had come to him, scared and in pain. He explained in simple words what he had seen on the ultrasound. There was a foreign object, he said. It looked like an older IUD. The tissue around it was thick and inflamed. It had been there for years. Did Mrs. Parker say she agreed to that device? Angela asked. No, Isaiah said. She told me she had always been afraid of IUDs. Her chart had no record of one. Next came Dr. Leonard Leo Marshall. He held up the clear bag with the blackened IUD. This is what we removed, he said. It was embedded in the wall of the uterus. Devices like this are banned because they raise the risk of infection and cancer. Did it cause her precancerous changes? Angela asked. In my opinion, yes, Leo said. If it had stayed longer, she likely would have developed full cancer. Then a device lab worker testified by video and confirmed that N3847 had been shipped to Quentin's clinic and logged as disposed of 8 years before. Detective Kiara Thompson took the stand next. She showed the jury a copy of the clinic log page, the line where N3847 sat with Quentin's signature, and matched the date to Ray's appendix surgery. She also described what she had found on Quentin's computer. In one email, she said, he wrote that he had given his wife a little gift during surgery, so she would stop asking about children. In another, he said this closed the door so he could move forward with his partner. He wrote that if she later became very sick, he could step back as the sad husband and keep control of the house and the clinic. Did he show concern for her safety in these messages? Angela asked. No, Kiara said. He showed concern for his money, his image, and what he called his legacy. Then it was the nurse's turn. Tasha Reed walked to the stand. She looked small in the big chair, twisting a tissue between her fingers. Miss Reed, Angela said, were you in a relationship with Dr. Parker? Yes, Tasha said softly. He told me he loved me. He said his marriage was just for show. Did he ever talk about Mrs. Parker's surgery? Angela asked. He said he had handled it, Tasha said. He told me she couldn't have kids. The doctors had always said that. He said putting in an IUD while she was already under was like doing her a favor. Did he tell you the device was banned? Angela asked. No, Tasha said. I thought he was doing what was best as a doctor. I didn't know he was hurting her. Do you have children with him? Angela asked. Tasha nodded. 2, Maya and Jalen. He called them his real legacy. He sent money every month. He helped me get an apartment. I thought I was building a family, not standing on top of someone else's pain. Finally, Ray was called. Her heart thumped as she walked to the stand. She placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth, and sat down. Mrs. Parker, Angela said, how long were you married to Dr. Parker? 15 years, Ray said. During those years, what did you believe about your ability to have children? Angela asked. I believed I was broken, Ray said. He told me my body wasn't made for pregnancy. He said doctors had always told me that. When I wanted a second opinion, he said I was chasing false hope. So I stopped asking. When I had pain, he said it was my age. When my period went wild, he said it was normal. When I cried about wanting a baby, he said maybe God had other plans. At the same time, he never told me he had put anything in my body. I never agreed to an IUD. Did you sign any form about an IUD before your appendix surgery? Angela asked. No, Ray said. If I had seen those letters, I would have said no. I told him many times that I was afraid of that device. How has what he did changed your life? Angela asked. Ray looked at the jury. I will never carry a child of my own, she said. That choice is gone. I live with scars and with regular checks to make sure the damage he caused does not turn into cancer. I also live with the memory of years of pain that he could have ended by telling me the truth. I'm here, she added, because too many women are told their pain is just age or stress. Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's what someone else did and didn't want to admit. When she stepped down, her legs shook, but she felt like she had set down a heavy weight. Quentin chose not to testify. His lawyer told the judge he would remain silent. So he sat at the table while other people told the story of his choices. In closing, Angela spoke once more. This is not about a doctor who made a hard call on a busy day, she said. This is about a man who lied on his clinic log, used a banned device, and wrote that his wife's sickness could be useful for his image. He did not own her body. He does not own the truth. She held up the bag with the IUD one last time. In this story, she said, that little piece of metal was not medicine. It was a weapon. The defense tried again to talk about stress and paperwork and how no one can see inside a marriage. But the words no longer covered the facts. The jury went to the back room. Ray sat on a bench in the hall. Kiara sat beside her. Neither spoke. At last, the buzzer sounded. The jurors came back and took their seats. Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Walker asked. We have, Your Honor, the foreman said. The clerk stood and read. On the charge of aggravated battery, we find the defendant, Dr. Quentin David Parker, guilty. On the charge of reckless conduct with extreme indifference to human life, we find the defendant guilty. The courtroom was very quiet. Ray let out a breath she felt like she had held for 8 long years. Later, at sentencing, Judge Walker faced Quentin. You were trusted with the most private part of another person's life, she said. You used that trust to secretly harm your wife for your own comfort and plans. This court will not call that a mistake. She sentenced him to 7 years in state prison, ordered his medical license revoked, and ordered him to pay for Reyes treatment and the harm he caused. As deputies took him away in handcuffs, Quentin did not look at Ray, and Ray did not look at him. She had walked into the courthouse still half inside his story. She walked out, knowing it was her own, and that this darkest chapter was, at last, closing. 1 year after the verdict, Atlanta looked the same, but life felt different to Ray Parker. The deep ache in her lower belly was gone, and the word cancer was no longer the first thing in her mind every morning. Every few months she sat in Dr. Leonard Marshall's office while he read her lab work. Still clear, Ray, he would say. No bad cells. Your body is doing its job. Each time she heard that, she breathed a little easier. What Quentin had done was still in her past, but it no longer decided her future. On a bright Saturday, Ray stood at a mirror in a simple cream dress. It was soft and plain, the kind of dress you could move in. Her hair was pinned up with a thin gold chain at her throat. In the doorway, a small girl in a white dress watched her. "Does it look okay, Zuri?" Ray asked. Zuri nodded. "You look like a hero," she said. "Like the ladies who win in the stories." Ray laughed, and for once the sound did not hurt. 6 months earlier, Ray had walked out of the county office with adoption papers in her hand and Zuri's fingers wrapped around her own. Zuri was 5. She had lost her first parents in a crash. Ray understood. She knew how it felt when the person who was supposed to protect you was the one who caused the harm. Slowly, they learned how to be safe together. Now, when thunder rolled, Zuri climbed into Ray's bed and pressed her back against her. "You're my safe place," she would whisper. And Ray, who once thought her body was only a problem to be fixed, finally believed that her arms were home for someone. In the living room, a small group of family and friends waited. At the front stood Dr. Isaiah Cole in a gray suit instead of a white coat. He had been the first doctor to say, "Something is wrong, and I believe you." Over the past year, he had become the man who checked her scan dates, brought soup after surgery, and read bedtime stories to Zuri. When Ray reached him, he took her hand. "You sure?" he whispered. She squeezed his fingers. "You're the first man who took something bad out of me instead of sneaking something in," she said. "I'm sure. The minister spoke simple words about truth and new chances. Ray and Isaiah said I do. Zuri scattered rose petals in a crooked line and clapped until her hands were pink. That night, after the food and hugs, the house was quiet. Zuri slept in her pink room while Isaiah rinsed dishes in the kitchen. Ray stepped out onto the front porch. The night air was warm. She thought of the woman she had been 2 years earlier, curled around a heating pad, blaming her own body, and of the first time she heard banned device and precancerous, the courtroom, the handcuffs, and the judge saying guilty. She also thought of Zuri's small hand sliding into hers without shaking, and of Isaiah listening without rushing her, even when the story was ugly. She remembered the first morning she woke up and realized she was not afraid. If any part of Ray's story sounds even a little like yours, remember this: your body is not your enemy. Pain is not just in your head when your gut keeps saying something is wrong. You are allowed to ask questions and to say, check again. You are allowed to walk away from anyone who treats your trust like a tool, no matter what title they wear. Ray did not get the future she first pictured, with a baby who had her eyes and Quentin's smile. Instead, she got a daughter who chose her back, a partner who tells her the truth, and a life where she writes the last line of her own story. And that, more than any prison sentence, is what real justice looks like. If this story reached you, stay with this channel. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next life story, and tap the like button so we know you're out there listening. Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for staying with me to the end. On your screen, you'll see 2 more true stories waiting. Pick one, press play, and let's keep each other company a bit longer.